Show me the mummy! The Mummy is an action-adventure horror film and the first instalment in Universal's new proposed Dark Universe, a shared cinematic universe of the classic Universal monster movies, which they're now bringing back and attempting this shared cinematic universe, which they're now kicking off with The Mummy. They did do Dracula Untold a few years back. That was kind of going to be the first instalment, and then they changed their mind last minute and swept it away, because I went and saw Dracula Untold a few years ago, and I was actually looking forward to that. I was excited about seeing that movie, and it was just bad. It was boring, dull. I did not like that film. Honestly, the worst criticism I can give a movie is when it just elicits no emotional response from me. And watching Dracula Untold, I was basically like this the entire time. The movie did nothing for me, so I was really disappointed and really let down with that film. So I'm glad they kind of swept that away. I mean, I like Luke Evans as Dracula, but everything else was just, it just wasn't a good movie. So I'm glad they've moved on from that, and now The Mummy is going to be their first in this new shared universe of monster movies. And going into this film, I was actually looking forward and really excited about it. I've been defending the trailers for a while. I've been thinking it looks really good. I was really excited to see this new take on The Mummy set in the modern day, maybe a little bit more grounded, more realistic, a blend between action and horror. I've been actually looking forward to seeing this for quite a while. And then the reviews came out and it'd been really scathing. It's been really poorly received. It's got like 17% at the moment on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think that is just, I can't believe that 83% of critics didn't like this movie, because I don't think this was a great film, but I don't think it was a bad film necessarily either. I enjoyed this movie overall. I think there was a lot to like about it. I don't think it was a great movie. I can see where the negative reviews are coming from, but I don't think it was that bad. I honestly think there was enough redeemable qualities to this film, and I think it's a solid start to the cinematic universe. It wasn't a great a start as I think it should have been, but I think it's a good enough kind of setup and launching off point where they can go on from here. When it was first announced that Universal was going to be doing this shared cinematic universe of monster movies, following kind of like the Marvel formula, I was really worried and really nervous, because I'm not a big fan of horror, but I love just classic monster movies. I really did want them to follow the Marvel formula and try and make a shared universe, try and make it kind of like a superhero thing. That is not what monster movies should be, and it's where Dracula Untold, I think, really fell short on. Is that they tried to make Dracula a kind of superhero. They tried to make it like a comic book action movie, and it just really didn't work. Monster movies should be monster movies. I wanted them to have some kind of horror elements to them, and I think The Mummy did succeed and was, I don't think it was a great film, but I think it was miles better than Dracula Untold. And one of the things that I think it did a lot better than Dracula Untold was that they didn't try to make it like a superhero movie. Like it did have a lot of action in it, and it was like a big kind of Tom Cruise kind of action movie blockbuster, but there were still like a lot of monster movie horror elements to this film. And one of the best positives I can give this film is that I think it was a great blend between action and horror. Maybe people that love horror would just like to see a straight up horror monster movie, but me personally, as someone who's not the biggest fan of horror but still really enjoys monster movies, I like the fact that they kind of blended action and horror, so it was both kind of a really cool kind of horror monster movie and a real great kind of big blockbuster action movie at the same time. And I think it did work for the most part. There are times when it's a little bit all over the place tonally, and it doesn't always feel like one film and one vision throughout, but for the most part I did like the blend between action and horror. I think it's something that Alien Covenant also did very well, in that they had the kind of the monster elements but with the action packed set pieces and all that at the same time, and I like that. I think that blend worked well with this movie. And also the cast. This is of course a Tom Cruise movie. I'm a massive fan of Tom Cruise. I'll see anything he's in, and the great thing about Tom Cruise is that he always puts 100% into whatever he's doing. So even if he's in a bad movie, it will still be watchable and it will still be entertaining for Tom Cruise, because he always gives it his all. Even if the movie around him's not that great, he's always really great. He's always giving 100%. He's always really entertaining to watch. He's got that kind of that screen presence, that magnetic kind of charisma and personality where you're just drawn to him and you're entertained and you're enjoying yourself watching him, even if the movie around him's not that great. And it's kind of a similar thing here, in that the movie around him isn't that fantastic, but he is really great and he's the shining star at the centre of this movie. I feel like if Tom Cruise wasn't in this movie, maybe I would have got a little bored. Maybe it wouldn't have been as, I wouldn't have been as engaged as I was. But the fact that Tom Cruise was there in the lead role, it made it more kind of, it was more engaging and it was more entertaining to watch because of the presence of Tom Cruise. However, it was both a positive and a negative for me. I'll get onto the negatives a little bit later, but I do like Tom Cruise, obviously, and I think it was a real great idea casting him in this movie. It's not as if only Tom Cruise could have played this role, but I feel like if anybody else was in that role, it wouldn't have been as, it wouldn't have been as entertaining to watch, because he's playing this character. He's not really a nice guy. He's a bit of an arsehole, really, but you kind of gravitate towards him and you're entertained by him because of Tom Cruise and his personality and his screen presence. So yeah, and all the other actors, I love Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's a little campy, it's a little over the top, it's a little hammy, but you can just tell that Russell Crowe is just chewing on the scenery and he's just having the time of his life. And it's another thing I liked about this movie. It's like, okay, it's not ultra serious. The marketing and the trailers made it look like it was really going to be a real grounded, serious, realistic take. It kind of is in some ways, but in other ways it's got that campy fun of the classic monster movies. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And again, this was both a positive and negative. Most of the comedy I liked, where it was just like, it was coming about naturally from the characters and just in these bizarre situations, and it was convincing that, if these real people were in these crazy, unreal situations, they would react in these kind of funny ways because it's just so crazy and otherworldly and bizarre. There were some elements of the comedy in this film that I didn't like, but I'll get onto that in a minute. But for the most part, I did like the comedy in that it was fun, it was campy, it was like, it knew that it was just this crazy, silly kind of stuff that was going on, and it didn't take it ultra seriously. I mean, all the monster stuff was kind of taken reasonably seriously, but it was also had fun with it, and it kind of poked fun at itself as well. And I think, like I said, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I love Russell Crowe in that role. I'm hoping to see more of him as well. So yeah, all the cast, all the actors, all the monster movie elements, and I loved all of that stuff. And lastly, I like the fact that it was kind of ambitious in that it expanded on the mythology of this larger cinematic universe, and it was like setting up what could come in the future. And I think it was done in a way that worked, and it didn't overpower the movie. Like, it was still its own film, but yet there was like these Easter eggs and teases and references here and there, like, oh, that we could see that in the future. So it wasn't like Amazing Spider-Man 2 where all it's doing is setting up future movies. I think it still worked as a standalone film, but at the same time I liked how they kind of expanded on exploring all this kind of mythology references and Easter eggs of what could come in the future. I liked how they did that. In terms of the film itself, I don't think it was that ambitious, but I do like how they kind of set up this mythology and tease of what could come in the future in this cinematic universe. But now getting on to negatives and some of the things that I think bogged this movie down and why I don't think it was a great film. First off, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but even though I love Tom Cruise and I think he did a really great job here, I think one of my problems with the casting of Tom Cruise is that I really wanted to see an awesome monster movie and a really great mummy film, and I feel like a lot of that was taken away from us because they were catering so much for this being Tom Cruise starring movie and an action vehicle for Tom Cruise and trying to make it a new big franchise for Tom Cruise. And it kind of worked, but at the same time a lot of the kind of monster movie elements of the film and the fact that it's a mummy movie were kind of taken away from us, and it was focused a lot more on this being a Tom Cruise movie. And I love Tom Cruise, but at the same time, when I'm going to see a monster movie called The Mummy, I want to see monsters, I want to see the mummy. And going to this movie, it's less of a mummy film and more of a Tom Cruise movie. It's like Tom Cruise's The Mummy, Tom Cruise's Mummy, than just a straight up mummy film. And I like the casting of Tom Cruise. I think it was a good idea to cast a big action movie star like Tom Cruise, because obviously it's doing really well across the globe because they've got a big movie star like Tom Cruise that's drawing audiences in. But at the same time, I feel like the movie suffered in the respect that it focused so much and relied so heavily on this being a Tom Cruise vehicle and a Tom Cruise action movie that, you know, we didn't really get to see it as much of the Mummy and all the other cool monster stuff as maybe I would have liked. I did like all of that stuff. I think Sofia Boutella was really great in the role of the Mummy. But again, you know, she's kind of almost in like a supporting role to Tom Cruise. And I like what they did with, like, he wasn't just a generic action hero. He was tied to the fate of the Mummy and they were kind of connected. And I like what they did there. That was cool. That was different. But like I said, it did rely a bit too heavily, I think, on Tom Cruise and his star power for me. And also the story of the film, I don't think was that great. There wasn't really that much of a story. I mean, it was more just a kind of sequence of events than a story. Not a lot really happened of interest for me. Like, it wasn't... I did enjoy the movie. I didn't get bored. But that being said, it wasn't as interesting or as exciting as I think it could have been. There wasn't really anything that happened that was shocking or surprising or like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Like, it was kind of predictable. It was kind of formulaic. Not a great deal really happened in the story, and that's probably my biggest complaint with this movie, because I enjoyed it. I think it was perfectly fine. I thought it was a good movie, but it just didn't feel very ambitious. It felt like they were really playing it safe, and I understand this is the first movie in a proposed cinematic universe of films. They don't want to go kind of too crazy. They want to kind of keep it safe somewhat, but I felt like they played it a bit too safe. It just felt a bit too just predictable and a bit too just like by the numbers. It didn't feel that surprising or interesting or exciting. I could understand how someone could see this movie and say, oh, it's a bit boring, because like I said, it was playing it a bit safe. It wasn't very ambitious. I liked to see them take it a bit further. It felt almost like they were holding back. Like they were like, and it felt almost as if they were kind of just making it up as they were going along. They were like, what should happen now? Maybe that should happen. Or like, it almost felt like just scene by scene they were just like making it up as they were going along. They weren't like, it's almost like they weren't really sure what they wanted this movie to be or what they really wanted to do next, and as if they were just kind of like making it up as they were going along. So I did enjoy the movie. I liked it, but story wise it did feel a little safe and a bit like they didn't really know what they wanted to do, and like they were holding back a bit. So that kind of bugged me a little bit. And lastly, another thing that I touched upon earlier is the comedy in this film. For the most part, I liked the kind of the comedy that came about naturally from the characters in these bizarre, crazy, weird situations. Because, you know, we did have real people in the real world in these crazy, otherworldly, unreal situations, it would be kind of weird and crazy and silly. But there was a particular character in this movie, this kind of comedic side character, who I felt was just really out of place. And he didn't bug me that much at first, but it got to a point in the movie toward the end of the first act where it seems like, oh, he's going to go away now. And I was like, oh, okay, that's perfectly fine. That he didn't really bother me at all. But then he came back, and I was like, oh, are you really going to bring him back? And then just as I thought he'd gone again, they kept bringing him back. And that's the thing with this comedic side character. He wasn't, I don't think, that annoying at first, but they kept bringing him back, and they just kept digging themselves into a deeper and deeper hole by bringing this comedic side character back who just, it just didn't work for me. Like the comedy that came from his character just didn't land. He did feel a bit out of place. It just did feel a bit like he was just like shoehorned in there. I don't know why he was in the movie really. Like, and every time I thought he'd gone, they kept bringing him back, and it just made it worse and worse every time they kept bringing this character back. And then just as I thought he'd gone, he then came back in the third act. I'm like, why do they keep bringing this guy back? He doesn't need to be in the movie. Just leave it. Just let this guy go. He doesn't need to be in the film. But just every 2 seconds they kept bringing him back and back and back, and just. The last time they brought him back at the end of the movie, I'm like, okay, just, this is a problem for me. At first, he wasn't a problem for me, but every time they brought him back, it just got worse and worse. But anyway, that's my rant on the comedic side character over. Overall, I did actually enjoy The Mummy. Do I think this was a great film? Do I think this is an amazing start to a shared cinematic universe of monster films? No, but I think it was a solid film. It was good enough. It did feel like it was playing it a bit safe. It didn't feel that risky. It didn't feel that adventurous. You know, I like Tom Cruise. It did rely a bit too heavily on him and his star power and his charisma. I think he did a good job. There was a lot of cool action in the movie, so a lot of great kind of practical effects and stunts. Technically speaking, it was a pretty cool, solid film. It just wasn't that just interesting and exciting. It didn't get me pumped. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing where the cinematic universe goes next. I'm looking forward to seeing the mythology expanded and seeing future movies. But as far as this film is concerned, as a standalone movie, it was like, it was okay. It was like, I enjoyed it for what it was. Am I going to go back and rewatch it over and over again? Probably not. Like, I think it was perfectly fine. I think it was a good enough start, but as a film on its own, it didn't really do it much for me. It was okay, but it wasn't that great. So overall, I'm going to give The Mummy 3 stars. And there we have it, guys. That wraps up my review of The Mummy. Have you seen the film yet? And if so, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. And if you missed my last film review, be sure to go ahead and click over here to watch my last review, or perhaps down here to catch up on another one of my recent videos. But with that said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.